Hello and welcome to Monday Night History. We're starting this channel doing videos on different periods of history, and the first period theme I'm going to talk about is Winston Churchill, who was born in the 19th century. He led the world against Hitler, and he was really the greatest statesman of the 20th century, and he led the world to World War II. He did it very well, and they created the international free world, which we still enjoy today. NATO came after many political agreements. The reason why there's exchange programs, people do business all over the world. It started really after World War II in 1945, when extreme nationalism ended and internationalism really began in a large way. We're coming back to nationalism at this period, but it's important to not lose sight of all the benefits of internationalism, which became globalism, but it was not the same. So Winston Churchill, he was born in the late 18th century, 1870s, and this is when Queen Victoria, perhaps the greatest queen, some say Elizabeth II, they both reigned a very long time. Elizabeth II, or also Elizabeth I, who was a very controversial queen when England left the Catholic Church. Anglican Church was created by Henry VIII. His daughter Elizabeth, Queen Elizabeth I. Elizabeth II just died a few years ago. She was queen at the end of, she's queen during World War II or something. At the end of Churchill's life, when Churchill passed away in 1965, she would visit him. So, Churchill was born, he had an English father and an American mother, and this is a time when this is the British upper class. His father was Lord Randolph Churchill. They were into politics. An ancestor of Churchill had done great things for the crown. In England, nobles had a great reward. If they did a great favor for the crown, the king gave them lands, and the lands created the wealth because people needed jobs, needed to eat. So there was a Duke of Marlborough, and then he was a great ancestor of Churchill in the time of nationalist rivalries centuries before. And Churchill wrote about the Duke of Marlborough. Churchill's a great writer. He has many books. Some of them are not super profound. He said they're his personal view, but also his personal opinions as a man of the world, as a great traveler, a knower of human nature. It's very accurate. His opinion, but often opinions of very wise people are confirmed by fact. Not always, very often, right? Because, we've seen it all, right? So, he was born into this family, and his parents, they were into their own thing, sort of like someone is born into a family, a successful family. The father is going to business meetings, the mother is either going to business meetings or socializing, not giving much attention. He had a governess. He had people are hired to take the place of parental affection. Often in these cases, there's an assistant, there's somebody seeing to the needs of the kid. They love the kid, but these parents often love what they're doing. Same or more, who knows, only God can judge. But this is what happens, and he has a nurse womb that gives him a lot of affection. Winston Churchill doesn't have parental affection. His parents didn't really like him that much, which is strange because he's one of the greatest men of the 20th century, and his parents thought he was a loser. They thought he was a dud. They were completely wrong about him, which he was made sure that he got an education, but it also, in his early years, he decided to prove himself. Perhaps because he didn't get parental affection. Who knows? His mother's father was also related to England. He would make his fortune and then spend it all, make his fortune. This is the time when England had all the money. United States had independence but did not have cash, so they had to get loans from the United Kingdom. The United Kingdom wanted to give those loans because they saw a growing population, and they would get payments for years. Which is what happened. And these are going to be relatively short videos. This is just an introduction. Winston Churchill was born into Great Britain, which is at this moment becoming the superpower, like the United States is the superpower today. England is becoming the superpower, and England is really the superpower. It has 400 million subjects of the British Empire. At the height of the Victorian age, the sun never set on the subjects of the Queen, and there's a saying that the sun never set on the British Empire, and also the sun never set on the problems of the British Empire. 400 million people, a lot of drama, many conflicts, from the Americas to the Middle East to India and beyond. Islands, British West Indies. The British are still around the world today, but less. And if there's one thing that's been very sad about Great Britain since World War II is that they have not come back to the great British people that they were. They've had less children, they become more materialist, and de Gaulle saw this as a problem for France as well. For whatever reason, the British people have always been proud, brave, rugged, and they love their country. They love the King and the Queen, the Union Jack. And Winston Churchill was a typical Briton of the 19th century, a Victorian man. And that was really the last generation of leaders that really were very competent. And they had, there's been leaders since then have known about many fields that have had great education, but they've been few and far between. Victorian times, they were all very well educated. They had talents, they had qualities. Hitler, they had skills, social skills, many skills. Maybe Stalin less, but he was more cunning. But all the men of the Victorian generation who was Patton and Bradley and Marshall, who had a great, and all the generals who took over World War II and won it, and MacArthur, they had formed themselves, they had read a lot, they were a very educated men, they knew the world, they knew the best prudential decisions to make, even not knowing everything. They were very wise. The Marshall Plan, right? There were many of them. They were fantastic. They were not just on the TV, into Vice all the time. Even Clay, right? Lucius Clay comes after. They organize the Berlin airlift to do the rational thing. They create the free world because of their goodwill and their reason, and also their knowledge, their competence of their fields, right? And so Winston Churchill is someone who is outgoing, he's brave, but he's alone as a child, he gets depressed, and he goes to bookstores, he reads a lot, he becomes a writer, he has other adventures we'll go into later, but this is just background. He's not a pushover, he's very brave, he's very courageous, and he knows human nature. And if you read some of his quotes and his wit, it's very brilliant. He says things exactly how they are. I have a book of Winston Churchill quotes. The vice of socialism, it's the equal sharing of miseries. The vice of capitalism is the unequal sharing of blessings, right? He was able to think like this, make great decisions, because he was educated and he talked to people, he was outgoing. He went to the Halberdiers, and he saw action. After his schooling, he joined the armed forces of the Crown. He saw action in India, he went to Cuba, and we'll get into that. And that was part of his, but That was part of his education, but he always believed in manliness and strength, and also being a gentleman. And he had what today would seem very old-fashioned, very archaic views of the world. He believed in the British Raj of India, that an empire, for a country to seek an empire was a great thing. He writes about the greatness of the Roman Empire. This is someone I admire, I understand it, but many of us today, we don't have any touch with the relativism and the insecurity and self-doubt of our age, and all the breakup of families, many things, for different reasons which have happened. The secular age, in which we don't know if there's a God or not, and everything's the same. We don't understand someone who believed in a global struggle between good and evil, and that his people was a Christian civilization and they were chosen by God. And this is what the Americans believed at that time. So we'll talk more about this, but this is just the background towards in this first episode of Monday Night History, towards the life of Winston Churchill.